Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Simon Pulman-Jones. I'm Global Director of Innovation Strategy at GfK. And I'm here to talk to you about the relationship between innovation and UX design, and from the perspective, actually, that I think the panel were touching upon just now. Okay, this is a bit of smart home going on now. We're just remodeling my front room here. I think the panel was just discussing actually a lot of the problems that we confront in our innovation and UX design work at the moment, which is actually that what is going on is incredibly complicated, and it's very, very difficult to figure out what's going to happen next. And actually, I'm going to step back a little and to use some kind of more traditional innovation theory to think about why categories and experiences change, to see whether we can get some clues about how to do innovation and design in a digital ecosystem more effectively. And I'm particularly going to think about the fact that, in a way, we all have to be experts now in innovation and user experience design, because as the panel were just discussing, we're constantly trying to figure out how to make things work. And actually, I'd just like to share with you a little personal story, probably a little bit too personal, because it's about my toilet. Not my toilet at home, but the toilet in this hotel, which is it's not a European toilet. We don't have them in Europe. It's a very sophisticated electronic toilet. And it's got lots of buttons and features and functions on it. And I'm frightened to touch it anywhere in case something happens that I can't control. But a really interesting thing happened with it is that when I noticed that when I walk into the bathroom, the lid opens up. And actually the first few times I walked up to it, and I just instinctively, I lifted the lid up, and it made a strange noise. It kind of went, ah! And I thought, oh, it's trying to talk to me. It's telling me, don't open the lid, I'll open the lid, that's my job, I'm your automatic toilet, I'll open the lid. So I found that instinctively, the next time I walked into the bathroom, I walked up to it and I kind of knew, I have to be a little bit slow, because if I'm too quick and I open the lid up, I'm going to upset the toilet. So I walked in and I said, hello, and it opened the lid up. Yeah, and hello is what I say to the cat when the cat comes in from the garden. And I was using it to the toilet. And actually it really reminded me about what Frederick and Pascal were talking about earlier with their chatbots. You know, I was inventing my own user experience for this toilet in order to, create a meaningful interaction between me and this robot agent, the robot toilet. So, I think most of the conversation today has really been about this topic, that UX and innovation have seen a huge shift in the role that they can play in people's lives. I think everybody will recognize this. UX and innovation has really been about changing how people do things. So innovation identifies new benefits, new ideas, new gaps in the marketplace, and UX design brings those to life and makes them work for people. And that, very often, that's things, could be something very simple but very valuable, like providing a different way, a new way to complete a checkout process in an e-commerce site, which allows me to have just a little bit more confidence that all of my choices were made correctly, that my information is being used correctly, and that I can do it quicker than I expected, and I'm delighted. So, that's very much the conventional world of innovation and UX design, where we're helping people change and helping them do new things. But, increasingly, we're in a world in which UX and innovation are actually not changing what people do, but it's actually helping people change how they're doing their lives. And actually, I think the panel discussion was very much about this. A lot of the work that we do now provides people with new components, new parts of a big ecosystem of technologies, digital services, which might be about measuring or monitoring or transacting or sharing or doing things in different places. And we have to, as consumers, as users, as people, we do a lot of work figuring out this new health app, which is telling me about my sleep patterns. Does that help me? Is it useful? I'm compelled to try it, but is it useful? What should I combine that information with? Oh, and I discovered that I was on a plane and it didn't record my sleep. Does that matter? I'm constantly having to figure things out. So we're all taking a much bigger job in doing the innovation and design work in this new world of the digital technologies and service ecosystem. So does that mean that kind of the old way of thinking about innovation and UX is no longer relevant? Because I think we think about innovation and UX as these two very closely related professional areas of practice. These are sometimes, very often it's done by the same person. And UX, innovation rather, is scanning the marketplace, understanding consumers and how their lives are changing, identifying gaps in the marketplace, bringing in, seeing where you can introduce new ideas. And UX is taking those new ideas, those new propositions, and making them delivered in a way which is, really delivers on the promise, is very compelling. So there's this natural partnership between UX and design and innovation, which is sometimes, we spend a lot of time actually making sure that our teams can work in this right way. We have innovators, innovation people and research people and different types of UX design people working together in an effective way. So this is not trivial. Making innovation and design work together is a very big deal. But do we need to think about that differently in a world where actually people are doing a lot of the innovation? And actually, if we think about people being the innovators and the designers, actually, it's a really interesting way to think about innovation and UX, because we're all innovation and UX people in our lives all the time. We're constantly going through this process of, we've got stuff which we've got to use. We've got this smartphone and this app, and we've got to use it. We've got to make the most of it. We've got to make it work for what we need. I've got to order a last-minute present for my wife, and I discover that it's difficult to do because I'm walking down the street and I'm just about to go into the subway, but I've got to make it work. But at the same time, as a user doing my own innovation and design, I'm thinking, there might be a better way to do this. I might change. I might find something else. So I scan the market. I look at the alternatives. I see what other people are doing. So, I'm constantly my own innovator and user experience designer. And is there something about that? Can we learn something from how people do their own innovation and design? And maybe it can help us solve, a problem that we've got. And I think the panel was talking about one aspect of this problem. A lot of us are working at a stage of the evolution of technology where we have a very complex ecosystem which is not quite mature in a lot of categories. So a lot of things are changing at the same time, and a lot of innovation and design work is working in an agile way, working constantly to make small changes to big experiences. We think about the big experiences that we all rely on, the experiences and services like WeChat. The innovation and design teams at WeChat will be constantly working in an agile way to make small changes to the proposition, and then to test them with users, and then to slightly change how the experience works. And it goes on all the time. And the digital experiences really have driven us into working in an agile way, which means constantly making small changes for innovation and the experience. But how do we then plan for the big changes? The big changes which the panel were talking about, when there's something which really changes how smart home works or how smart car works, and the market's really disrupted. So is there a way of knowing when these big changes are going to happen that will get us out of the trap of working in an agile way, in a continuous innovation process? Maybe one of the things that we could look at is actually kind of taking a step back to when experiences and product categories changed at a slower pace, and see the patterns for the ways in which those categories evolve and change. And actually, if we look at what innovation theory tells us about how product categories used to change in the old world, we can identify 5 stages of evolution. And this is a really strong rule about how categories change. And I think it's really interesting to look at that and to think about whether we can apply this to our new world of digital technologies and network digital services. So let's take the example of the car category. I know we've talked a lot today about cars, and of course cars are where some of the most interesting changes are going on for us. So how did cars change over the last 120 years? At the beginning, in cars, like in most categories, you start out with one simple proposition, actually very often 2. Right from the beginning of the car, there were 2 basic benefits that you got from a car. You could get from A to B, there was practical transport, and even in the 1890s, people were realizing, this is fun, this is fantastic, a car is a fun thing. And so right from the beginning, there were really 2 ways that the car category happened: practical and fun. So that's wave 1, the very beginning of a category. In wave 2, companies are competitive in the marketplace, and what they do is they bring out better versions of the basic benefit. So you always see wave 2, where you see a better version of the basic one. So wave 2, we get a better practical car, which goes from a sedan, say, to a station wagon, or we get a better sports car. We go from a sports car to a convertible. So that's wave 2. But then the really big wave, and that's why it's big here, is wave 3. And in wave 3 is when a company or a brand or brands really conquer the category, and they take a big part of the market share. And the way that they do that is very straightforward. They say, you don't have to choose anymore between a sports car and a practical car. You don't have to make a choice between these 2 basic benefits in the category. We can give you one that is both fun and practical. So wave 3 is the wave of convergence or fusion of benefits. And actually this is really where the car category is at, and it's been there for probably the last 15 or more years. And you've got lots of fusions: sports utility vehicles, sports activity vehicles. And this is where really the market volume is. And it exists because it actually satisfies consumers' demand to get all of the different benefits that they want in one proposition. And that's really one of the things which drives change in all categories. Wave 4 is a wave of secondary innovation. Wave 4 doesn't change the marketplace. No company completely conquers the marketplace in wave 4, because wave 4 is just about adding niche benefits or secondary benefits. So in the car category, wave 4 is about adding, say, for example, either city cars or green cars, or cars for very niche usages and applications. So wave 4 doesn't grow the category, but it adds some incremental volume. And then wave 5 is actually what we've been talking a lot about today. And wave 5 is where so many of our experiences are at. That's when a product category can actually link with the benefits or the technologies from another category to create a new category. And in this case, of course, Wave 5 is happening in a huge way to cars, with the link between cars as a platform and digital network technologies and services. And of course, this is what Kyle was giving us this very interesting insights this morning from BMW's perspective on that. And I thought it was very interesting, Kyle, that you said, really the car is like a giant smartphone. And in a way, that's it. It's saying the car is no longer a car, it's another category. But we don't know, actually. Maybe it won't be a smartphone. Maybe actually the car in 10 years will be our main health platform, because it's the place where it's the best place to capture data from our bodies, from our blood, from what you can get from our breath about our blood composition and so on, whatever. But Wave 5 is where a category turns into another category entirely. Okay. This is it's a pattern that you see across all categories. You see this, you see this in food, you see this in financial services, and you see it in everywhere. I'm just going to show you another example from the interior of the car. It really just helps show how this rule works. In Wave 1, if we think about interior technologies, and this is really kind of starting from where Kyle had us at the beginning of the day and going way, way back to the beginning of all of these experiences. In Wave 1, in the beginning, we've got two main interior technology things going on, or activities. You've got kind of radio or CD entertainment, and you've got maps for navigation. Wave 2 is about a better radio. The competition is to make a better radio, so a better radio or music player has got information services on it, and of course this is where satellite navigation comes into the picture. Interestingly, what happens here is actually in Wave 3, you almost always see one of the players capturing market share back by converging and bringing benefits together. So of course, in Wave 3, actually, this is where the car manufacturers fight back, and they took information services, navigation services, and entertainment services into integrated systems in the car, and they recaptured a lot of that value into converging them in the car. And then in the car, this is really where car interior technology stays for quite a long time. There's some Wave 4 activity, and we know a lot of that. Actually, a lot of cars are still there. This is where you can bring additional devices into the car, so you can link your iPhone through Bluetooth, or you can add additional screens in the back of the car for the children, something. So Wave 4 is all about secondary benefits and add-ons. But of course, we're at Wave 5 now with car interior technology, and that's exactly what Kyle was telling us about. It's no longer the interior of the car, because the technology is linked to external network digital services and technologies. And actually, the car might be becoming about health services, or mobility services, or insurance services, or whatever. And I really like the way that Kyle said, actually, BMW, that means that it's not the interior, it's not the exterior, it's the experience. It's something completely different. So Wave 5, again, it creates a different category. Now, of course, all of this is really, in terms of innovation and design strategy, this is really important. You need to know, at each stage of evolution, there are big winners and losers in terms of experiences that are being provided. And I think it's actually a real danger of the way in which a lot of agile innovation processes work today, that we've become quite tactical, focused on making constant changes to experiences, and we're vulnerable to big changes that might happen. So, is there a way that we can identify, thinking about people, users, their own innovation strategies? If we think differently about our user research, can we look for the evolution patterns in people's experiences, and can they help us identify when the experiences that we're designing for, that we're doing innovation for, are about to change? Well, yes, I think you can. Actually, we can flip this model over. So, this is the innovation theory model about how companies drive the market and they make evolution and change in the market. But actually, of course, we all have to respond to that. And we have our own strategies, our own approaches as innovators and designers in our own lives. At the beginning, between wave 1 and wave 2, we're focused on improving the basic benefit. We've identified there's a new benefit that we want, a new thing that we want to do, and we just want to do that well. We're focusing on improving it, on getting the best option. Between wave 2 and wave 3, we're recognizing that there are a few things that we're doing that have a lot in common, that we might be able to combine. So we're about converging different experiences or fusing them. And wave 4, we love this way of doing things. We love this experience. We want to use it in more places. We want to enhance it. We want to really fit it into our lives. So wave 4 is all about people having enhancement strategies in their lives. And in wave 5, we start to realize maybe we can link this up to something else and it'll really change things. It'll transform a big part of our life. So let's look at a quick example of how that happens. So think about financial technology, smart payment services, so contactless payment. In wave 1, contactless payment gave us a number of different cards that we could use for contactless payment. And in wave 1, what we had to do as users is to figure out how do they work, where do they work, which stores does this card work in, which stores does another card work in, what's the user experience of them like. And actually, between wave 1 and wave 2, we had to figure out, which is the payment card or the payment system which really worked for us, and it's settled out into some more mature systems there. But then, so that's focusing on improving. Between wave 2 and wave 3, we found that we were carrying around a number of different contactless payment devices. You've got maybe a transit card for your public transport, and you've got maybe a credit card or a debit card that all use contactless payments. And in wave 3 has seen what happens in wave 3 in experiences. That is the convergence of similar benefits or functions underneath the most versatile or most compelling experience. And of course, in this case, that's the smartphone. So now, the smartphone is the dominant form of contactless payment because we can both use it for near-field communication, tapping, or for QR codes or for barcodes, and it's the place where all of the data and information required for the transactions can run through. So really, at the moment, the smartphone is the killer for contactless payments, and it's hoovered up all of the wave 3 innovation. And a lot of that, actually, we experienced it ourselves because, we experienced the fact that there are too many things to carry around. It would be so much better if we could just use one device, and that's what's happened. We're really just beginning in wave 4 with the kind of interactions that are possible with financial transactions that are enabled through no signature, no numbers, an intuitive transaction. And this is really bringing in a secondary benefit where it becomes intuitive to us. I love using contactless ways to do transactions. The idea that I can just move my smartphone and actually it makes a connection, it shares some data. This is incredibly intuitive. I would like to use it in everything that I do in my life. And actually, social enhancement, a secondary benefit, is something that's added here. So I want to be able to actually either share my transactions with other people or share information about transactions, or find out information about transactions. So wave 4, we're enhancing. We are actually trying to use this more in our lives for enhancing. And then wave 5, well, we haven't got there yet with financial technology and contactless payments. But this is when, as users, as people, we start to notice big similarities between different categories or products or ways of doing things that we use in our lives. And I think one of the things where there are big similarities, where we'll probably see wave 5 activity that builds off financial payment and transaction technologies, is in health. Actually, a lot of people are using health apps and health monitoring tools, and there are big similarities between the job that's being done, which is the capturing, monitoring, analysis, and sharing of sensitive data, and that actually the wave 5 we're probably likely to see, and partly driven because people see the relevance of a kind of convergence of contactless and intuitive transaction methods that make us actually, that enable health data and health information to be transacted more effectively because it can rely on what's been achieved with financial payments. And maybe this will also use blockchain technology and so on, other things which are coming through the development of financial payments. So actually, if we think about the stages of evolution through the user's eyes, through our own eyes, we can see that maybe there are patterns even to how fast-changing categories are evolving. Let's just quickly sum up by thinking about, at each stage, what does that mean for innovation and for UX design? When we're at the improved stage, between wave 1 and wave 2, if we're in our research or our work with users, when we're scanning the market, when we're doing user research, we'll see that people are all about learning the benefits, fitting them into their lives, evaluating competing options. And for innovation, this is all about, we need to be optimizing the proposition, and in UX design, optimizing the delivery of the benefit. Now, this is no surprise, because this is actually where most of our work is all of the time. And actually, a lot of agile work, I think we're kind of trapped in this part of the innovation evolution. The next stage, where people are fusing different experiences together, they start becoming aware of redundancy and overlap between different solutions that they've got, like we see with the contactless payment. They start developing their own personal convergence strategies, and that's where we, as innovators and designers, we need to pay more attention to how people are doing that for themselves. And actually, what happens is that people will always migrate the delivery of a particular job or a benefit under the most compelling or the most convenient experience. So for innovation, this means that we need to help people end the trade-off between different benefits. And for UX design as well, it's very important to avoid the silos where we have a particular job or a benefit or a function being delivered by an interaction style or an experience which is either too heavily branded or too heavily specialized in its interaction that it can't actually be repurposed to deliver different functions or different experiences. I think that's very important. At the enhanced stage, this is about people at this stage. They're telling us, if we're doing research with them, it's clear that this particular technology or solution really works for them. They love it. They've made it work well, and they're looking to find additional places in their lives. And actually, the main thing is that they're trying to use it in situations that it wasn't designed for, or it's people who it wasn't designed for that are trying to use it. And actually, that actually enables some fairly clear objectives for us with our innovation and design to support what people are doing when they're about enhancing. We've gone beyond proving the basic benefit or function, and there's a whole different set of opportunities for innovation and design at this stage. And finally, with the transform stage, this is about, if we're paying attention, we can use our users, the people we do research with, to help us notice when two categories are really starting to have synergies and come together. So this might be, the convergence of financial and health in the transaction and sharing of sensitive data, for example. But actually, what this is all about is a huge innovation and UX challenge. And I think this is naturally where a lot of the conversations have been today. How do we make this happen? And I think Kyle gave us a really lovely demonstration through that BMW video of the innovation challenge of turning two categories into one compelling proposition. You know, how can a BMW be both that car that provides the joy of driving and an incredibly satisfying and compelling information and communication experience at the same time? What is it? You know, this is a big job, actually, figuring out how to define new categories which are fusions of old categories. You know, and actually, it's a big innovation job in terms of figuring out how to pitch that, and it's also a huge UX design job as well in terms of being able to harmonize the interactions and experiences across different categories, which I think, you know, that BMW video gave a lovely example of exactly how that would happen in actually the real time of an experience. So to sum up, I think my point has just been that we find ourselves in a situation where we are all the experts now. We are innovators and UX designers in our own lives, and we can use that in our work, and it can help us move the practice of innovation and UX design in a new direction that will, particularly if we pay attention to people's own innovation and design strategies, how they're dealing with some of the emerging digital experiences that we're designing for, can help us keep ahead of that evolution and and be aware of the big disruptions when they happen. And I think maybe one of the really interesting things that it makes us think about is that, that innovation and UX design needs to be more than just delivering compelling experiences. Actually, we need to think about supporting people as innovators and as UX designers in their own lives. We need to make new benefits more discoverable, more findable, and we need to make experiences more adaptable so that people can link them together in their own lives more effectively. Yeah, so on what I hope is an optimistic note, that's bringing today's discussions to a close. Thank you very much.